Yeah, I'm a printmaker. I primarily do lithography. I love all kinds of print, but litho is has my heart. Um, I think printmaking is in a really interesting place in the world right now when it comes to like its place in like art history. Before printing presses, painting was like the primary way to share information through visual mediums. And then when printing presses became commonplace, mechanical reproduction took over the way of like, disseminating information. And so, as a result of that, painting became more expressive, where all of a sudden there was this range of expression that painting was capable of that it didn't have before when it was just there to disseminate information and be a part of ritual. That is like a point from a essay by Walter Benjamin, which is like what informs a lot of modern printmaking today. Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. Since then, the printing press has been overtaken by digital reproduction and digital art or just anything digital. And because of that, I think that printmaking is in a position that painting was a few hundred years ago, where printing is now has a more expressive range because its necessity as like a tool for disseminating information is now irrelevant. Yeah, and what that means for printmaking, I think, is still up in the air. I think that that's just that's the job of printmakers to see how that plays out. I really like using geometric shapes in my work and kind of thinking about the built environment, as well as politics and how printmaking is related to disseminating information. I think I'm just going to start from the left to right. This is a drawing. This is a print I did, a woodcut relief print from a drawing that was in a pseudoscience book published in the early 1800s. I don't know. It's not important. But it was a book called the Dictionnaire Infernal, and it was just a catalog of devils. I thought it was cool. There's not a whole lot of there's not a larger point to that. I wanted to have fun and draw or print cool stuff. I dropped out of CCA previously in 2020, and this was one of the prints I made then. And I remember I did this in like a day, like less, and it just came together perfectly, and I was very happy with it. And to the point where I was in critiques, unable to like hear any critiques of it. So I was just like, no, it's perfect. Under that, this is one of my favorite prints ever. It's copper etching in Poglio, soft ground. So soft ground is like, I don't know much about copper etching, but I like it a lot. Soft ground is a process where you use a very thin layer of soft wax over a copper plate, and then you lay material in the wax and run it very lightly through a printing press. And the material that's in the wax makes an indent on the copper plate. You then sit it in acid, and the acid eats away at the exposed copper, and then once the acid wash is done, you hit it with ink, and the ink sticks to the bits of the copper that were exposed. It's the most difficult process done printing-wise. I only did it once or twice, I think. This is it. The textures that are on it are tarlatan and cardboard, and the cardboard made it on there because my professor misinformed me about the negative space, and it ended up being like my favorite print because of this texture. This is a woodcut reduction print. A reduction is an interesting process because it's not reproducible in the way that other prints are, where the matrix that stores the information that you're printing from is destroyed as you carve. I think that that's really interesting, largely with printmaking, because printmaking, the importance of printmaking is its reproducibility, and this not only cannot be reproduced, the 4 prints I achieved, I made into a collage. So it's like, there is an original, which most prints don't have an original. They're just made from a matrix. This is another woodcut that I really like. 3 layers. It just came out beautifully, I think. It was relatively early in my understanding of printmaking, and I remember rushing through it and then misregistering it to the point where once it was on the printing press, I was manipulating it by hand, which is something you try to avoid. Yeah, definitely a favorite work of mine. Both of these follow a convention that I came up with, where every line that intersects with the edge of the page is copied over. And so this print could be made into a collage like that if I had 4 of the others, or if I printed the blocks again. This is a lithograph. Lithography is like, yeah, where my heart is with printmaking. It's a really interesting process of it's a chemical process. So the rest of printmaking is physical, where you're physically etching into copper, or you're taking wood away from a wood block. Lithography is using the properties of ink and water refusing to mix. You chemically fix an image on a limestone, and then squishing against it, and then squish a piece of paper against it, and you get a print like this. It's, I think, really interesting because it's, the prints that you end up receiving from lithography end up being the same on a molecular level, where it's a chemical process, so you're literally doing things at a microscopic level, which is it's a tedious project, but it is super rewarding because of that. These are also lithographs in the same series as this guy from this pseudoscience book I mentioned. This is the original jack-o'-lantern. I think the Gaelic name is Yantitan, and he's the myth is that he tricked the devil and was banished from hell, and now walks around with a turnip and a coal to keep warm, and that's like the original jack-o'-lantern, is this demon's little lantern. This is Ukobach. In that pseudoscience book, his position in hell is the devil of fried food. Just funny. And then this is a color lithograph, which follows in the same convention as these two, where every intersecting line at the edge of the paper is reproduced on the other side, and it creates a really interesting patterning effect. Color lithographs are especially difficult because it's for every color you add, it duplicates the amount of work you have to do. So the 3 colors here is, 3 times as much work as any of the other prints. That's my work.
Great, it was exactly 10 minutes. Any questions, you guys?
Who are your influences in art?
When I was a kid, I was a big Escher fan. That's the geometry stuff. I'm a huge fan of this architect, E.L. Weissman. He's founded an organization called Forensic Architecture that creates it looks at architecture from war zones and creates prosecuting evidence for war crimes. And his understanding of architecture is and the build world is what I'd like to aspire to, I guess. Trevor Packlin too, I think he's cool. He's in the same lane as E.L. Weissman. I'm on the spot. I haven't crafted my brain for it.
Okay, well that's enough.
If I think enough.
Are you inspired while you're making these geometric industrial pieces? Are you inspired by your location or the city that you're in? Are you inspired by any of the architecture you see? Or is it mostly in your?
Not necessarily. I think a little differently. I like to think about convention. So setting a rule for a drawing and then following that convention, and then eventually you stop having to make decisions for the drawing, and it kind of creates itself. So it's by the time I figured out what lines would intersect with the edges of the paper, the print is halfway completed. At a certain point, I'm just following rules I set for myself instead of bringing something to life from my imagination.
Do you see your prints coming off paper, or do you see yourself manipulating paper in that sort of geometric way?
Going in a sculptural direction?
Yeah. Where do you see yourself going with your work?
I'm not against going in a sculptural direction. I really am kind of a print purist, and I like to make printmaking about printmaking.
Yeah.
In what I was saying earlier about painting becoming more expressive, an example of that is painters were then able to use the brush stroke and use the paint as something in the image instead of reproducing an image. And I think that printmaking is in that position now where it's I want to use the fucked up misprint stuff of that. This chatter is in the same place as a brush stroke in another painting. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
What's the letter?
Oh, the title of the show is Anti-Canvas.
Okay.
And it's just a cheeky shot at the fact that there's no canvases in printmaking. There's no original in printmaking. It's just reproductions from Matrix.
And what's the most memorable thing you were listening to while making one of these pieces?
I like chopped and screwed music. Yeah, DJ Screw.
Do you prefer the quality prints or sometimes the misfits or things to replace your plan?
I hold them in separate categories. I look to do what's in my head. I like to have a finished one. But the misprints I have a special drawer for. Yeah, they're I have a special place for misprints that I really enjoy. And I'm a big fan of misprints, but it's not so celebrated in the purist.
Thank you, Jackson.